Today, we talk to a sleeping giant among Minnesota companies and talk about where they're headed: $1 billion in revenue, an IPO in the next few years, and maybe even the world's greatest magnet. Today on the Twin Cities Business Show, we talk to Niron Magnetics CEO Jonathan Rowntree. I'm Charlie Ryback. Welcome to the Twin Cities Business Show. I'm Charlie Ryback. I'm our host. With me today is Jonathan Rowntree, the CEO of Niron Magnetics. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Charlie. It's great to be here.
So, tell me why I should care about magnets.
So you should care about magnets because the modern world really runs on high-performance magnets. You just don't know it. So the sound that we're picking up today in these microphones and the speakers that listeners are listening through are powered by magnets. But not only that, your smartphone has 18 magnets in it. The car that you will likely drove here today or at some point has 75 different magnet applications in it. And that's just the start, the tip of the iceberg. So the modern world runs on magnets. They're critical across many of the applications that we take for granted today, including air conditioning, also aircraft, wind turbines, motors and pumps. They all rely on magnets to make them work. And so whenever you have electrified motion, they use a magnet. And so that's why they're so important in the world today.
So, how did a Minnesota company end up being the one who's going toe to toe with China to help break our reliance on rare earth minerals that their country controls?
So the story goes back a little bit in time. So Nyron was formed more than a decade ago from sponsored research from the Department of Energy. That research was done at the University of Minnesota, and the genesis of Nyron was the outcome of that research, where we proved that iron nitride, which is what our technology is the world's most powerful magnet technology. And so that was then the genesis of Nyron just over a decade ago. And since that time, we've been perfecting how to make that. And making magnets is a scale business, a volume business, but it's also cost competitive. And so it's taken us a few years to figure out how to cost effectively scale our technology. And that's what we're doing today. So we recently broke ground on our first manufacturing plant back 4 months ago in Sartell. And it's a great time right now as we're building that plant and qualifying our magnets across many different types of applications.
Really interesting. So, a lot of these magnets use these rare earth minerals. You guys don't. Where does the iron nitride come from? How do we get that rather than using the stuff that the U.S. largely doesn't control?
Yeah, great question. So the source of our iron are actually iron salts, which is a byproduct of steel making. And so here in the US, the virgin steel that's made, not recycled steel, a lot of that iron ore comes from the north of Minnesota, gets put on a boat, goes across the Great Lakes. And during the steelmaking process, there's a process that basically cleans the material at end of line when they're making steel rolls. And that is those iron salts that we purchase as a source of iron. And then our source of nitrogen is from ammonia, which is used for fertilizer manufacturing, especially here in the Midwest, and also for some food manufacturing. So wherever you have steel making and fertilizer manufacturing going on, you can stand up a magnet factory. And so one of the great things about Nyron's technology is you can go from materials all the way through to finished magnets under one roof, which is very different than the rare earth supply chain, where it typically goes through 4 or 5 different facilities.
And thinking about your feedstocks, we have iron ore, we have a lot of farming. It's sort of a perfect combination of two things that Minnesota's done for a long time.
Exactly that, and that's really why we were born here. We've grown up here, and we continue to get support from the government. So back in 2023, we received a $20 million scale-up grant to really build out our current capability here in Minneapolis. So today we're up to about 100,000 square feet across 4 different buildings. And I joined Nyron about 3 years ago. We had 30 employees, and today we're approaching 150 employees.
And that's just in Minneapolis?
That's just in Minneapolis. We'll hire about another 50 more employees this year as we continue to build out our capabilities. And then in Sartell, we are building our manufacturing plant, this year and through the majority of next year. And so that plant will come online late next year. So creating a lot of construction jobs. But after it's fully built and we've fully ramped the facility, we're anticipating about 175 employees that will be working out of that facility.
Wow. Fascinating. So let's go back in time a little bit. So there's a University of Minnesota research project. Tell us about kind of the breakthroughs through that, and then how what some of the barriers were to scaling that into becoming the company you are today.
Yeah. So Professor Jumping Wong at the university was the professor that did the research, and he's had I would say, a lifelong curiosity about iron nitride. It's been known about since about the 1950s in Cambridge, in the UK. But it's one of those materials that is difficult to make because iron nitride exists in multiple phases, but we want one very specific phase, which is very magnetic, but it's difficult to make it in that phase and it's difficult to keep it in that phase. And so that's where a lot of the secret sauce around our technology is around that part of the process. But the breakthroughs were at the University of Minnesota is just modern analytical capabilities, modern ways to make materials allowed us to identify that iron nitride was the world's most powerful magnetic material.
Most powerful. So it's the most potent, setting aside all the other benefits.
Exactly. So
Interesting.
the pure phase iron nitride, and what Professor Jumping Wong did at the university was use a semiconductor technique to lay down a few atoms thick of iron nitride, and then measure the magnetic moment of that to prove out it was very powerful. And so, interestingly enough, magnetic strength is measured in Tesla. No
Okay.
coincidence the car company is
Okay.
called that because magnets are critical for electric vehicles. And pure phase iron nitride is about 2.4 Tesla. The high performance rare earth magnets that are used today are around 1.3 to 1.4 Tesla. So we're about 50% more powerful in the pure phase.
Wow.
Now, we haven't fully extracted all of that power yet. We're already above 1 Tesla. We'll be at similar to the rare earth magnets, right, by the time our plant one comes online. But it's such an exciting technology because we've only unlocked 40% of its potential, and there's a lot more to come.
Interesting.
And the other great benefit of iron nitride is just the low cost raw material inputs. And so at scale, because it's a scale business making magnets, we will be competitive with Chinese made magnets. And that's really critical for the US, not only for defense and national security needs, where naval submarines, aircraft carriers, F-35 use a lot of magnets,
Mm.
but also for energy security and economic security, because magnets really underpin modern life and a lot of the economics, right? You won't be able to go and buy a car without magnets. You won't be able to buy a smartphone without magnets, etc.
Really interesting. So, let's dig a little bit into your background. You have kind of a history with uh, high tech companies, commercialization, things like that. Can you take us back through, your last couple of jobs and how they sort of led to this one?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have to go a lot further back for
Yeah,
that
go all the way
because,
back.
all right,
Let's do it.
because it's what I love about the job I took over 3 years ago. I kind of joke, I felt like it was a 30-year apprenticeship to take the
Hmm.
Nyron role. So I'm a chemical engineer by training. Spent the first part of my career, building chemical processes, chemical plants, scaling new products, and then I moved into not only scaling those processes, but then building the plants that actually
Mm.
would manufacture those products. So I ended up building plants in South Korea, China, the US, and Europe.
Wow.
And then along the way, I got an MBA, wanted to use that. And so
Mhm.
I moved more onto the commercial side of the business and did several roles. And then continued to grow essentially to really general manager positions. And the last 10, 15 years, really running global businesses that are in all the end markets that Nyron will serve. So in consumer electronics, such as appliances and audio, in industrial applications, automotive, defense, and power. So uh, it has been a great kind of experience through my career, building all the skills needed to really build and scale a company, especially one like Nyron, where we're moving very quickly. We're going through this hyper growth phase, right?
Hmm.
To go to probably 1,000 employees here in the next 3 to 5 years, and
Wow.
probably go to almost $1 billion in revenue over that same time period.
Wow. Minnesota's next billion-dollar company, maybe, right?
Oh, so that's the plan, and we're excited to be doing that. And we have a lot of great talent that's gonna help us deliver on that.
Excellent. Let's go even further back. Where did you grow up, and how, as a teenager, do you get interested in chemical engineering?
Okay, so you probably picked up from my accent. I'm not from around here.
I figure western suburbs or
So I think it's Mid Atlantic probably. So I'm English originally. I moved here in 1998, and um, at school my favorite subjects were chemistry and maths, and
okay.
so chemical engineering was just seemed to be the natural kind of thing to gravitate into, and I just love chemistry and bringing new materials into the world and making them solve problems, right? So the application is also something I'm very interested in. So developing new materials to solve customers' problems is what kind of makes me tick. I love to do
Mhm.
that, and particularly passionate about that when it's to do with the environment and sustainability.
Mhm.
Um, Nyron is a great sustainability story. We have a very clean process, and it's also very sustainable, not only from how much recycling we do, but also at scale, right? We don't need any subsidies, right, to compete on the open market. And so that's what I knew I wanted to do something around new materials and developing those, and that's what my career really just continued to do across many different kind of
Yeah.
sectors. Always materials, but electronic materials, advanced materials, engineering materials, always in the materials space.
Interesting. So you really from a very early age almost knew that you wanted to do something like this. What's like an early memory you have where you really knew, chemistry and I click and this is where I want to go?
Um, it was probably when in chemistry, probably when I was in late high school, doing lab preps, and I just love to do complicated lab preps where you do all these multiple steps to make a material,
Mhm.
and then I think it was probably at that point just really enjoyed doing that. It's a little bit like baking, but and you got a recipe to
Yeah,
follow, and if you don't follow the recipe, it doesn't always taste very good.
I've been
Not
there.
not that I tasted the chemicals, right? But it's a similar thing where you
Yeah.
don't make the chemical you want unless you follow the prep properly.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so you've been in Minnesota a few years now. Tell us a little bit about the process of what brought you here, and then how you ended up staying.
Yeah, so I've been here about 10 years, and we moved from California.
We're
What
in
dr-
California.
in Southern California,
Okay.
yeah, in Orange County, and love living there. But what enticed me to come here was we acquired a company in Chanhassen.
I thought you were going to say the winter.
Yeah, well, we moved in November, and
Okay.
that was a bit of a shock to the
Inadvisable.
system. Yeah, so but I integrated that company into ours. I took over from the CEO, integrated that into our business, and that's what brought us to Minnesota. And then about 4 years, so about 2019, then was looking around for my next opportunity,
Mhm.
and joined a company that's based out of Phoenix, Arizona. So Rogers Corporation. I started there running one of their business units. Was going to move there, and then COVID hit, and so
Mm.
we ended up not moving, and ended up running two of their business units. And we were going to be we agreed to be sold to DuPont. We'd done very well to kind of grow our business and catch the eye of DuPont, so they wanted to acquire us. But about 8 months into the deal, that kind of fell apart because the Chinese at that time wouldn't give regulatory approval for the merger.
Interesting.
But I'd already started looking around, and I'd found Nyron. And the more I looked at Nyron, the more intrigued and excited I got that I could really help Nyron to scale their technology.
Fascinating. So interesting through line here. You said you've helped build plants in China. You have this sort of Chinese regulatory issue at a previous job, and now you're working at a company that's really dealing with rare earth supply chain stuff that China controls. What has been your relationship and feelings like with working sort of in adjacent spaces to Chinese companies over the years, and how has that influenced your thinking now as a leader?
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting journey, over that time. I first visited China in 2001. I went to Shanghai, and we was visiting customers at the time,
Mm,
and then I then later on, I think in 2003, 2004, we ended up building a factory there. And a lot of the semiconductor market was growing in China too. This was much more basic semiconductor at the time. It wasn't
mhm.
the high end, chips that you're now seeing today that are powering AI. It was much more the basic building blocks of electronics.
Yeah.
So um, but learned a lot during that time and the importance of speed, right? In
Hmm.
terms of developing and scaling new technologies, building the right ecosystem. That's also important. And so there's things that China have done well that we need to make sure that in the US we're doing similar things. And so what's been really important to Nyron as we've scaled here is speed is really important for us.
Hmm.
And so it's about the number of learning cycles that you get in to develop your technology is absolutely critical to advance and develop. But also the ecosystem, right? So partnering with companies locally that can help us to accelerate our progress and development and scaling has been critical. And the Minnesota ecosystem is fantastic for that. The University of Minnesota, I think, was ranked number 3 or 4 in the nation for number of startups in the last several years, and so it's a great incubator of technology. And then there's many Fortune 500 companies that are located in the Twin Cities, so a lot of great talent you can pull from, right, to
Hmm.
help augment and to grow your team. So just a couple of examples, I think, as I've learned that we're applying in Nyron, right, to optimize and accelerate our progress.
Really interesting. Thinking a little bit more about Minnesota. So you join the company. You guys are thinking about how you're going to manufacture these things. You end up choosing Sartell. Tell me a little bit more about the process of why Sartell, why you ended up there, and then how do you finance something like that?
Yeah, yeah. So uh, our process has developed. So when I first joined, we weren't making the first step in our process. We were purchasing that, and so we decided that we wanted to kind of bring that in house because
Mhm.
it's very much a foundational building block of our technology. And then we also the other thing that we did was we're developing a new material for the world, and we didn't want to develop new equipment to make that new material because you get this stacking of risk, right? And so
Interesting.
in my experience, when you develop a new material, you want to use industrially proven equipment wherever possible
Rather than building something new
exactly
that hasn't been tested.
right to
Yeah.
de-risk exactly.
Interesting.
So we're using fully industrially proven processes at every step. In the back end of our process, we use full size magnet alignment presses and full size finishing equipment. In the early part of our process, we're still scaling that. It's a batch process, and
Mhm.
so in the first part of the plant, we really make magnetic powder. And in the back half of our plan, we take that powder and to squish it into different shapes and sizes. And so it's the back end is really already scaled. What's still to scale in the back end is not the size of the equipment, but it's the automation. So
Mhm.
we're working hard now to more automate the back end because the number of magnets that we're producing gets very big very quickly. So today we're already making hundreds of magnets a day. In plant
Wow.
one, we'll be making 100,000 magnets a day. Uh,
100,000?
yeah, and then we're already working on plant two. So actually, next month we'll be going out with a RFI for a 10,000-ton facility. So basically, working with all the states in the lower 48 to find the next home of Nyron's next manufacturing facility.
Interesting.
And so we're just kicking off that process. So it's an interesting time right now. We're building 1,500 tons in Sartell. We're exploring, can we expand that even more than that, maybe to more like 4,500 tons? And then we're also working on a 10,000-ton facility. And kind of sounds a lot, but just to put that in perspective, the world uses about 300,000 tons of magnets per year.
Okay.
And the US uses about 50,000 tons. And so, while 1,500 tons is a great start for us, we want to be able to move the needle on supply of magnets into the US market. And so, that's why I spent quite a bit of time in Washington. Is we're working to figure out how we can accelerate bringing that capacity online as quickly as possible to solve the supply chain crisis that we have with magnets supplied from China.
Really interesting. So why did you guys end up choosing Sartell?
So Sartell, we worked with DEED, so the Department of Economic Development,
Okay.
and we also
The
ran
state
a
of Minnesota.
state of
Just
Minnesota.
yeah.
Yep, we ran a process with them in partnership to look at all sites in Minnesota where we could take the next scale step. And we wanted to do that somewhere close to our current facility because, in my experience, if you try and scale in a new plan too far away from the mothership, it causes some challenges because a lot of the people that are in Minneapolis will be in that plant in the first one to
Mm,
2 years helping us scale the technology. So we actually started with 75 different sites, believe it or not, in Minnesota.
Wow.
We shortlisted 15, and then we then down selected to 5. We visited those actually not just once, but twice during the process. And we ended up choosing Sartell for a number of reasons. It's a great community. It's a growing community. They have great technical labor availability in the St. Cloud area. I mean, that's really Minnesota's manufacturing city. If you
Mhm.
think Rochester's medical, then you got obviously the Twin Cities. The St. Cloud area is very much manufacturing companies.
Mhm.
So we could pull from that. There's some great universities there and technical colleges. So we're already partnering not only with the high school in Sartell, but also St. Cloud Technical College and St. Cloud University. And then we also have close ties to the University of Minnesota.
Mhm.
So a few of the reasons we chose Sartell, the town really wanted us. The Verso paper mill burned down about 12 years ago
Wow.
in that community, and they were really looking to entice new, technology, new companies to come in the area to become a key part of that community. And I can't say more about the town there and how welcoming they've been and what great partners they've been. So we're excited to build our facility there and put down roots.
That's great. That's great. So there are a couple interesting through lines. You talked about your experiences with making sure that you had proven technologies that you're using to test your, test your products out on, as well as really focusing on putting the facility close to sort of the mothership, which you mentioned. Those are all sort of things that you picked up along the way. Can you talk a little bit more about how those experiences? You talk about the 30-year internship, but just different experiences that those have shaped where you got to today and how helpful that's been versus if you had taken this job, say, 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think some other examples. It it what I really enjoy is building the team that
Mm,
with the right people with the right capabilities and the right skills at the right time, right? You don't want to hire them too early, because you're a startup, you're burning cash, but you don't want to hire them too late, when they're not able to respond and be able to deliver on the capabilities that they need to help us scale the
mhm.
business. So I think if I reflect a little bit on my experience there, that's been extremely useful in scaling Nyron. We're on, I would say, organizational structure number 3 from when I started,
Okay.
because in the first year it was very technical, right? We had to make technical progress. Second year was about building out the capability that we have today to go from the gram scale to the ton scale. So already doing that first steps of scaling. And then this last year has been much more, externally with customers, investors, and government. And so, preparing the organization for growth is you've got to anticipate, well, what am I going to need 12 months from now, and let's start building that now. And so,
Mhm.
I think running in larger companies and scaling technology in my career, it helps you kind of you know what it feels like to go through these different stages, so you can anticipate them before you you know it becomes very clear and slaps you in the face that you should have developed something earlier, right?
Yep.
And so I think that experience is what's helped guide us and making sure we stay on track.
Interesting. Um, so you're at Congress in November. Can you tell
Mhm.
us a little bit more about that process? Why were you there? It's a great video, by the way, if people want to check it out. Really interesting testimony.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great experience. And so I testified in the China Select Committee around, basically the pricing and subsidized pricing that China is offering or providing for magnets. So I was also testifying there with several other senior executives from other magnets and critical minerals companies, and really just helping provide some recommendations on what would help the U.S. to stand on its own 2 feet in
Hmm.
terms of critical mineral and magnet supply. And so Nyron was really the one representing the alternative. So, you know, I think it's clearly known here that we need to invest in mining and finding new rare earth deposits and developing those and processing those. That's going to be critical. There's also recycling that's going on, which is also important. And then you also have Niron, where we're kind of the champion of the alternative, right?
Hmm.
And that's what we've done is really changed the game. We've innovated. We've done what the US does best to provide high performance magnets that don't rely on Chinese sourced raw materials. And so the Congress, the testimony was really, answering questions and informing Congress about, the challenges that pricing has made on U.S. companies and how they operate, and forcing them out of business in the past,
Mhm.
and the need to the industrial-based policy that needs to be put in place to support these critical minerals and magnet supply in the U.S.
Mhm. So just, broadly speaking, China's had this manufacturing industrial advantage on us, it seems like, for a couple of years. What would it take for the US to catch up to them? And or am I asking the wrong question?
It's a great question. There, we need to develop new sources of those minerals here in the U.S., which means we'll need to set up mines and processing capability. But we're kind of playing catch up, right? And it's going to be really difficult to out invest and outpace and have the scale, right, that
Mhm.
China has. And so we've got to find ways to leapfrog. And one of the ways to leapfrog is to innovate. And that's what exactly Nyron has done. Our magnets today are approaching the same level of performance as neodymium iron boron, the rare earth magnets, but we've only still unlocked 40% of the potential. And so,
Yeah.
we've the magnets that we're making today are the lowest performance magnets we're ever going to make. And
Mm.
so, we're excited about that. Our customers are excited about that, and what that's bringing not only in security of supply, but also what our performance will unlock, making better devices, more efficient devices, and that's probably what our customers are most excited about today.
Really interesting. So more recently, you guys have launched all these new partnerships. There's been a flurry, motors and speakers and things like that. Can you talk about what phase of the company you guys are in as you've started to move into these partnerships? Why, and any that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, we're excited about all of them, as well as developing new materials. I love solving customers' problems, and uh, we've got a lot of partnerships right now where we're helping customers to do exactly that. So we recently announced a partnership with Stellantis. They make the maker of Jeep, Dodge, and Chrysler vehicles. And we're partnering with them on using our magnets for a new electric drivetrain design using variable flux technology.
Mm.
So that's where we're solving the challenges in automotive. But in a car, probably first products that we'll be introducing are in speakers. And so we announced a partnership with Stellantis also, and Fatal Pro, which makes speakers. We recently announced a partnership with them to have door speakers that use our magnet technology to power those speakers. But as well as that, we're also in the accessory motors that go into a vehicle. So here, think powered windows, for instance, or
Mhm.
sunroof windows, sunroofs. And so we're partnering with customers there on developing those and for those applications. We also announced at the CES show, so the Consumer Electronics Show in January in Vegas. It was a great show for us where we unveiled a number of partnerships across working with an electric bike company
Mm.
where our magnets are used in those electric bikes, as well as electric bicycles. Also, there. So really, our first, I would say, traction applications. And then more recently, we've been engaged with defense opportunities. And so here we announced a partnership in December with Moog. They're the largest supplier of actuator motors to the US military. And so here, think about flight services. Any flight service needs an actuator motor that actually makes the flap
Mm.
move, right? And so excited about the partnerships there into the defense industry. So you'll see more of these. So stay tuned as we announce more. And we're expecting our first commercial sales to happen here in the next quarter, right? And that's going to be on a pro audio application. So here, think big concert speakers, right? High powered speakers. We'll be starting to sell those here shortly. So it's exciting. It might take 1 or 2 years, but
Yeah.
then you'll be able to go into a Target or a Best Buy and be able to see our magnets in products on the shelf.
Really interesting. Really interesting. So as you guys scale, it sounds amazing. It sounds very expensive. How do you plan to finance all of that?
Yeah. So capital is probably one of our biggest, things that we need to raise with right now. It's where I'm spending most of my time. We've done very well already to attract a number of tax investment credits and grants for our first facility, as well as a commercial loan. But we're starting to gear up now for what we call our Series E fundraising, where we'll be going out to the market to raise several $100 million to complete our fundraising to build out Plant One and bring it to full scale.
Really interesting. So if you have several $100 million and you're watching this, you know who to call. Really interesting. Tell me a little bit more about yourself. I just learned that you are a water skier.
Mm.
Is that a new thing? Is that new to Minnesota? Have you done that for a while?
Yeah, no, I did that for a while. Growing up, we used to ski in the UK, and I actually have fond memories of actually skiing on in the UK Boxing Day, which is the day after
Oh
Christmas
yeah.
Day. It was always very cold on the lake, but my dad loved to go on Boxing Day. Can't do that here in Minnesota,
Yeah.
right? Unless you got an icebreaker. So doing some snow skiing as well. But yeah, love to be outdoors. Anything outdoors on the water or just outside. Love to do that.
That's great. So, thinking out into the future, you have plans for this new industrial facility. You have a bunch of growth plans here, 1,000 employees, $1 billion revenue. Where do you see, this company potentially going in the next 10, 20 years?
Yeah, the sky's the limit. To be honest, with our technology, we have plans to build a number of high volume manufacturing plants. I mentioned, obviously, Plant One is in Sartell. Plant Two is moving into where else in the U.S. we want to consider putting that in place. We may build more plants here in the U.S., but we'll also have a very heavy export business, and so we are considering future plans both in Europe and in Southeast Asia. So if you're there, you could think three high volume plants, 30,000 plus tons of volume supplying to customers around the world. It sounds a lot. It's about 10% of the market today, but the amount of magnets in the world needs to triple over the next 10 years,
Mm,
and so it's growing very quickly. And we hope to be a key part of supplying magnets into those different applications.
really interesting. So basically what you're saying, aiming for sort of 10% of the current global supply, but the number of magnets we're using is going to increase. So maybe ending up somewhere in the range of 5% of the global magnet
It is, but we're quite
market.
happy to build more factories,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So, we're really focused right now on Plant One and Plant Two, but fully intend that we're going to hopefully build that through Plant One through 10. And, our technology here today, with the magnets that we're producing today, can replace about two-thirds of the rare earth magnets that are out there in terms of performance.
Interesting.
In a few years, it'll be more like 80 to 90%. And a few years after that, hopefully, 100% as we continue to improve the performance of our technology.
That's great. That's really great. And just thinking about, you've had this role where you've kind of gone to these companies, you build them, you've commercialized them. Do you think it ever gets to a point where you may say, okay, I want to go on to my next adventure, or is this a place that you want to really be for the very long term?
Yeah, I'm here for the long haul. I joined Nyron to take it all the way. For us, that's really, going public. And so we're already on a track to take to Niron public here in the next 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
It'll depend a little bit on the market. It'll also
Yeah,
depend on us making sure we execute on our plan. Uh, but yeah, exciting to take a company public and love the challenge of that. Right, it's a lot to build, but a lot of satisfaction. Right, having got there. So uh, so excited to be working for Nyron. We're on a great growth path right now, and really enjoying building a team to help us deliver on that over the next few years.
that's great. So next 2 to 3 years, we'll be watching. You know, uh, Finally, just thinking about as you're looking at building something that's really never been built before, right? There's not really a playbook for that. There are other companies that have scaled, but where do you look for your sources of inspiration on either building a team, building a company, or things like that? Either people you talk to, things you read, or a little bit of both.
I think it's all of the above. We have a great board. We've recently added more members to our board with a broader kind of like knowledge and background, and we'll continue to add expertise and capability in that. We also have a number of advisors that have been through the journey that we're going through, right? This hyper growth phase where we're building out manufacturing plants globally. We're hiring a lot of people, at helping us to figure out what are the right systems that we need, the right processes. As you can imagine, we're producing into automotive and defense. You need quality systems, right? You know, the right quality checks. You need the right computer systems and ERP systems to be able to transact on. So it's really, making sure that we are not only hiring the right people that have got the right skills and capabilities, but also the advisors that will help us. And we've done a nice job, I think, more to be done, but a nice job at building this really great balance of kind of capabilities and experience with talent. And so maybe a few examples. We have a lot of chiefs, and I'm not talking about the C-suite, right? Not my role. But we have a lot of chief scientists, chief engineers.
Mm.
They're really top of their field. They're world class at what they do, and we partner that then with a lot of younger talent that's maybe younger or earlier in their career, and it's just this great balance of the chiefs kind of mentoring those younger folks on their experience, but the energy and creativity of our team to come up and solve problems. And so I think that's probably one of the things that sets Nyron apart is this learning and problem solving, because as you mentioned, scaling a business is difficult. And so we got to, being honest with ourselves, what's working, what's not working, and if it's not working, how do we improve it? And then, kind of build, measure, learn is our approach to really be able to, fluidly work through all the challenges and navigate that so we can deliver on time to our customers.
Interesting. Anything else you would like to share while we're here today?
I think we covered most things. I really enjoyed, talking with you. Nyron's a special place. We'd love to invite you to come and visit and show you around and make some magnets.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thank you so much for the time.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's been another episode of the Twin Cities Business Show. Thanks so much to Keely Doyle, Ali Alt, Mike Novak, and Gabe Noah for all their work behind the scenes. We will see you next episode.